Want red beans and rice that taste real nice? Ask Corey, he got the story. Want to make lasagna better than your mama? Ask Corey, he got the story. Want blackened catfish to be your main dish? Ask Corey, he got the story. Want to make gumbo without all the mumbo jumbo? Ask Corey, he got the story. Want a king cake that ain't no fake? Ask Corey, he got the story. Want to make a poor boy that'll bring your mouth joy? Ask Corey, he got the story. Corey Rocan, Food 411.
Welcome to this special episode of Food 411, where we learn how to make a homemade lasagna. And this is not a lasagna that's really difficult to make. It's actually a very easy recipe. I made this recipe on a weeknight, and it only takes about, from start to finish, beginning to end, hour and a half, 2 hours. That's not bad for a homemade lasagna. And if you wanted to cook it on the weekends for family or guests, it's even better. And this is a recipe that I bring to you with happiness and sadness. Happiness because you're going to get to enjoy a family tradition, a family recipe that's been passed down. And sadness is I have spent most of my adult life trying to beat this recipe. When you see how this is cooked, you're going to like, this is so simple but elegant and tasty. I've spent all these years trying to do these difficult things, making the sauce from tomatoes and building it on up, and you're going to find out just how easy this is, and it actually tastes better. And you're going to find out that we omit the ricotta that most lasagnas have, and you'll find out why. So I sent my mom an email and said, Mom, I need the recipe for lasagna. I give up. I'm going to cook your recipe on the air. So she calls me up and says, you know what I'm going to do? You're always talking to me about, talking on the show with me on a popsicle stick. I'm going to put your email on a popsicle stick and show just how you are. So I'm not going to let her have that joy. So Mom, I, in front of everyone, am using your recipe for this episode because it truly is the best recipe. Well, thank you, son. It's the first time that you finally said that I have a better recipe. Well, look, I got to give credit where credit's due. This is the best lasagna recipe. I'm sorry. Well, thank you, son. It's about time you finally noticed that. That doesn't mean I'm not going to quit. That doesn't mean I'm not going to try to keep getting better than this recipe. But as of now, this is the best recipe for lasagna. So I hope you guys relax, sit back and enjoy, and watch how to cook the best lasagna. Yeah, the best because it's mine. Okay, the best because it's yours. See ya. Alright, so let's do this. And it's time to make the world famous lasagna. Alright, I've got about a teaspoon and a half of olive oil heating up in this pot, medium-high heat. 1 to 10, I got it at a 6. I've got some water in here. This is for my pasta. I've added a little bit of salt, and I'm going to put that on high right now just until it starts boiling. I've got 1 pound of ground meat, probably about 80% lean, and I've got a half a pound of pork. That's it. 1 pound, half pound. I'm stressing this stuff because of all the variations that I've done over the years. I made a vow to myself tonight that I will not change one single ingredient or one single step. I'm going to do it exactly like she does it. So, because normally I do a pound and a pound. Neither here nor there. So, got this a little bit heated up. No seasoning right now. all I'm going to do is just simply cut this up and brown it. That's it. You just do it till it's all brown. Then we're going to move it to a strainer. Alright, I've been browning this for about 5 minutes. All I've been doing is mixing it up and letting it brown. There you go. That's it. So I'm going to stick this in a strainer and a colander in the sink. I'm going to add a couple drops of olive oil. Maybe a teaspoon, maybe. Just to get some lubrication down there. 1 medium onion, diced. And you can do 1 big stalk of celery, and this one I just had 2 little stalks. And I got these diced up. Oops, sorry. One bell pepper. And then almost a whole head of garlic. I'm going to hold off on that just a second. I'm going to give this just a couple of minutes. Just let it, they call it sweat it. Just let it sweat down a little bit. And I'm doing this on a weeknight, guys. That the family will eat, so you can do this on a weeknight. So let me just sweat this down for a couple of minutes. We're not trying to overcook this. If you cook this down to nothing, you're going to take all the water out, you're going to take all the crunchiness out, and you're not going to have, it's going to cut down on the flavor. So we want a good bit of flavor in here. So I'm just going to do this just to sweat it down just a little bit. I'm going to get my garlic. Alright. I'll cook this down about 2 or 3 minutes more. Right. Just cook this down a couple minutes. This water's still getting hot. 1 can of 6 ounces of tomato paste. The beauty about this lasagna is that it is so good, and you're not having to make it from fresh tomatoes and spending all day in the kitchen. That's really the beauty of this. I have done that so many times. I've cooked lasagna from scratch. I'm talking about scratch noodles, scratch sauce, everything from the ground up, where it takes all day. This tops it. I'm just throwing it out there. If you guys knew how hard it was for me to make this episode. Whew. But I make one vow to you guys. I don't put out a recipe and film it unless it's the best I can do. Alright? Is that fair enough? There's a lot of episodes that you guys never see. I have an idea, or I'm going after a flavor, or I'm going to try to do this, try to do that, mess with recipes, and I film the whole thing. And then at the very end, we taste it, and if I don't get that, like it's the best thing they ever had, goes in the trash. So, you guys that follow me on the YouTube channel, you'll see that, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 videos all at a time, and then nothing for a few days. Well, those are in the trash. And we got a blooper reel coming at some point, so maybe you'll get to see some of the bloopers. Some of them are quite comical. All right, I'm just cooking this down just a little bit. Let me see if you can see this. Huh? That's it. Nothing to it. Just cooking it down just a little bit. Okay. About a half a teaspoon of sugar. That's it. You know the packs of Baby Bella mushrooms at the grocery store? They can come pre-sliced or slice them yourselves. Her recipe calls for the pre-sliced. I tend to like them a little bit thinner. My kids don't like the mushroom texture that much, and I found that if I slice them wafer thin, they like it. So it's the same pack. I don't call this a change in the change in the recipe, but it's just the Baby Bella's razor thin. Okay, I'm gonna add that in there. I'm just gonna let this cook just a little bit, nothing much. This is one of her secret ingredients that I think it's a later addition. I don't think this comes from my grandmother's original recipe. So I think we probably try to add a little touch of our own. All right, she does it to her mother's, and I do it to my mother. I think that's just part of the blood. This is shrimp and crab boil by Zatarain's. So for you guys that are not in the southeast part of the country, this is a liquid crab boil that they love in Louisiana. It just adds a little touch of spice, and if you see, this might be more subliminal than it is anything else. We're only going to add just a little bit. Literally just a few drops. Sure has a nice smell to it though. All right. 1 big can of tomato puree. I'm not going to mention brands until I'm sponsored. So you pick the brand that you like. This can is 1 pound 12 ounces. 1 pound 12 ounces, 1 pound 13 ounces. Those are common, so just a big can. I'm going to put that whole thing in here. And the thing that I don't like is that there's residue on the sides. I'm going to rinse this a little bit. All I did was put about this much water. Oh, my water's boiling. Okay. Turn that down. All right. Just stirring. All right, now for some seasoning. I have in here 2 bay leaves, about a teaspoon of oregano, just the regular dried oregano that you get at the grocery store. About a teaspoon of the dried pepper, you know, the pepper flakes, the red pepper flakes, and some salt and some pepper. The salt and pepper, I'm not really saying how much, it's just up to you. You want to taste the sauce after it cooks down a little bit and see if you know, for your family's needs. You can omit the salt, up to you. So, just add that. So, what you want to do now is, I'm going to turn this to medium-low. I'm going to put a tight fitting cover on this, and I'm going to let it cook. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the sauce nice and thick. You're cooking down everything, you're softening up the mushrooms and the onions and the bell pepper and all that, but you're trying to get a thick sauce. As you see, it's already thick. Not bad, huh? So we're just going to cook it down a little bit, let it get thick. We're going to add one more secret ingredient to this. I like to do it at the end. This ingredient I actually showed my mom, so this one she can't claim. And I almost forgot the meat. Gotta add the meat in there. That's why I lay everything out. And if you notice how I do this, you think I just do it for the show. I kind of do and I kind of don't. I like you to see what I'm cooking with, but I like to put my ingredients in order because there's a lot going on. You got kids, you got homework, you got this and you got that. And it's like nice to know what order you're going to put things in, so when you leave off, you can put them in there. So if I'd have left that in the sink, I might have forgot. Just a little trick and tip behind the scenes of Food 411. Okay, now for my pasta. If you're watching this show, I'm sure you've probably cooked pasta before. If you're watching and you're catching me off the internet, you may not have cooked pasta before, or you may not have cooked homemade lasagna before. So when you make the noodles, you want to make them not totally soft. You want to make them what they call al dente. So I'm going to put the noodles in here, and I'll time it to kind of let you know how long it took till I get it the right texture that I'm looking for. I'll show you that texture so you can duplicate it. And the reason why I can't say an exact time is because the pot that you use, the exact temperature that you use, all those things come into play. So it's better to learn what look and feel that you're going for rather than the time. You have to trust me on that. Got a tight fitting lid. I'll put my pasta in. Be back in a second. So let me show you what this pasta looks like. It's been on low to 10. I have it at 5.5, and it's been about 10 or 11 minutes. It's still not sticky, but pliable. And that's what you're looking for. I didn't do it at a high boil because we got time waiting on this. And what I find is when you do it on a high boil, that roll in action starts to tear up some of these lasagna noodles. And then you end up throwing a bunch of them away. And if you see, I cooked the whole pack of them. Half of them, 4 of them were broken off from the store, right? Because you can't open it up and check it. So you can't afford to lose any. So boiling it at a just a slow boil seems to work better, and it doesn't tear them up. And one other thing that I did is once I put them in there, I did stir gently underneath. You don't want any of them sticking to the bottom because they stick to the bottom and then they rip. So perfect. I'm going to drain these, and the only thing I have left to do is I'm going to grate my Romano cheese. So bear with me just a second. All right, on the sauce. Remember I said that there was one secret ingredient that I gave my mom actually. If you are can handle red sauce, add about 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. Just regular old baking soda. What that's going to do, it's going to lower the pH, kind of neutralize this thing. Okay? And it bubbles up like a science experiment. But what it's doing is it's neutralizing all that acid. And it's great. Now it's time for the magic. First thing we want to do, and please don't forget that you have 2 bay leaves floating around in here. You don't want one of your guests to eat one of these bay leaves. So, we're going to spoon some sauce on the bottom. And the reason the sauce is first is just so it doesn't stick, the noodles don't stick. That's a much better lubricant than the spray butter or whatever that is. Okay. We have our noodles. That all I did was put them in this colander. I rinsed them with cold water and just let them sit there and dry, do their thing. The oven I have at 350. We're going to lay these down, and you see how these things are virtually perfect because of that low boil. Can't tell you the number of times that these things have gotten ruined. Do not overlap these. Her words, not mine. A lot of lasagnas, they'll overlap them, and I can see the point.
the lasagna is not quite finished, the noodles aren't quite finished cooking, and if you overlap them, it's going to be cool there, and you'll have nice pasta and then hard pasta. So, some good wisdom. All right, here we go. Sauce. Okay, now cheese. This is a 5-cheese Italian blend. That's it. Lots of cheese. She calls for 1 big bag. I happen to find 2 smaller ones. They equal the same thing. Sharp cheddar cheese. This is a 8-ounce pack. So the 16-ounce would be the big one. She calls for the fine grated. You can see. Okay. This step is something that's up to you. Parmesan or Romano. It's up to you. Now, you know the Parmesan in the green can. That stuff is not aged and it doesn't have a lot of flavor. We're looking for flavor in between these layers. So this happens to be Pecorino Romano. Either that or you can use Parmesan Reggiano. Up to you. Liberal amounts of this. I grated up about a cup of this, and I don't like to hand grate it, so I just put it in the food processor. Bop, 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 you're done. All right, that's layer 1. I'm going to kind of push it down. Get ready for layer 2. Anybody who's made lasagna noodles, I hope you appreciate the slow, low boil that I did. That made these things come out perfect. Good job, Mom. So we were talking about cooking. You know, I think I'm a good cook. And she says, yeah, you're a good cook. I'm a good cook too. She said, but I got 20 years on you. So, she's right. So guess what? I shut my mouth and started listening. Alright. On this, I know you may think lasagna has a white crust or whatever, but I'm going to do her recipe. She calls for the whites to go down first, and she likes a yellow top. So guess what we're going to do? The whites first and yellow top. Take the rest of my Pecorino Romano. And if you've never had this stuff, this is really good stuff. Gives it nice flavor, just like the Parmesan Reggiano. It's aged, just a wonderful flavor. And we're going to top this off with some cheddar cheese. This doesn't have to be perfect. Once we get it in the oven, it'll all kind of mix together and I'll be good. Now, couple last little things, little housekeeping. Paprika. If you watch my other shows, for garnish I use the regular old American paprika. Don't get the Spanish and the smoked and all that, because we're just looking for just a little bit of garnish. The next stuff you can put just for garnish. You can use some parsley, oregano. I happen to use thyme, and the reason why I use thyme is when it's in the oven, parsley tends to brown. The thyme doesn't offer much flavor to it. It's more garnish for this recipe, but it won't brown. Just make it look nice and pretty. Alright, so 350 oven. I'm going to put this in until everything gets nice and melted. And when we're finished, we're going to have us a perfect lasagna. So, see you. Alright, so I took it out of the oven. It's been in the oven about 25 minutes. Just got everything melted. Looks beautiful. And if you notice, I didn't put any ricotta cheese in this. Lasagna is supposed to have ricotta cheese, right? Well, my mom tells me that it has no flavor, which is true, but I've always put ricotta in my lasagna because you're supposed to have ricotta in lasagna. But she says all it does is take up space and doesn't have any flavor. Let's put other flavor in it and take up the same space. Makes some sense. So, took it out of the oven. It's been sitting for about 15-20 minutes. Let's give this a taste test. That's the best lasagna you'll ever eat. Quick, easy, did it on a weeknight. This has got it going on. So until next time, see ya.